So, the time has come. Bat of Gotham versus the Man of Tomorrow. Batman v Superman. It's weird that Batman's being reinvented and recast when it's only been 4 years removed since The Dark Knight Rises. I'm looking to see what Henry Cavill can build on with his role as Superman and what Ben Affleck can do as Batman, considering in some reviews he's being cited as the now quintessential Batman, which is interesting because there have been quite a few people that have been considered the quintessential, one of which being Michael Keaton, my favourite, Adam West, which is Random's favourite. He is here. Say hello, Random.
I'm amused by all the angry people on the Twitter. It's good, no?
Yes. Anyway, this movie's been getting kind of mixed reactions. Some saying this is no better than Batman Forever, which, but then I would cite, what do you imply? Batman Forever was a good movie. But we shall see. I'm just hoping this will actually satisfy most of us hardcore comic book movie fans. In 2.5 hours, will it be the Bat, or will it be the Man of Steel that comes out? See you then. Now to get into where to start with this review. I will say outright, Ben Affleck and Jeremy Irons as Batman, Bruce Wayne, and Alfred, respectively, superb casting choices. Jeremy Irons has that snarky wit that reminds me of Ephraim Zimblast, I think that's his name, who voiced Alfred during the animated series years. And Ben Affleck, he is my joint favourite live-action Batman actor now. Michael Keaton is always going to be, you know, my first top favourite, because he was what I was introduced to for the live action. And, you know, I think we're back at that stage. It's like, you know, we've got an actor that can get in the head of Batman and actually portray him right. Ben Affleck is able to bring the mannerisms, the thinking, have these backup plans, you know, in order to move forward. You just sort of see his thinking process and whatnot. The thing I'm really getting sick and tired of is seeing the origin story. Each time we go into a reboot. Now, I will grant, on this occasion, we didn't spend nearly 60 minutes building Bruce Wayne up to be Batman, and getting to invest in the character. They kind of took a 2008 Incredible Hulk route by doing away with the origin story during the opening credits. And also, might I add, it's actually nice to see a movie reveal at the start of the movie, right at the end. Sorry, Christopher Nolan, but we're kind of getting tired of the shtick you started. I still think you're a decent director, but I think in terms of Batman, I think Zack Snyder, Batman was one of the few things he got right about this movie, because he really understood the character. But I don't think Batman taking lives was something we really wanted to see. At least with Christopher Nolan, Batman either took very little lives or none whatsoever. Jeremy Irons just has some of the best lines in this movie, like he goes, "You were too old to die a young man, sir, not for a lack of try." He goes, "Infrared shows that there are at least a dozen or so hostiles on the 3rd floor. Why don't I drop you off on the 2nd? You just sort of think, This is good. Henry Cavill, he really brought it again as Superman. I think to a point, Zack Snyder lost focus with how Superman should be represented, whereas Cavill is very protective. He knows how he feels the character should be done. It's a very similar mindset in this as to how Tim Daly's Superman reacts to Batman coming into Gotham in The World's Finest, which is actually a two-parter episode just turned into a movie, but it was just as a means to go into more into Superman the Animated Series, and as a means of... I do apologize, sorry. And as a means of getting another Batman animated series done by Warner Bros. But let's face it, Batman the Animated Series is one of the most iconic and quintessential representations of Batman to this date. I think what Bruce Timm and his associates did with that particular series, amazing. Writing. The title itself, let's just address this, it barely has any presence. With The Dark Knight Returns Part 2, the fight between Supes and Bats goes on for at least 15, 18 minutes, if that. Which lasts, goes a fairly good while. Whereas with this, we get this, I don't know, 2 hours, 10 minutes build up to the fight. And then the fight is over within about 5-10 minutes. And it's over because Supes says, "Please save Martha." And I feel like it's a bit of a cop-out that the only reason Batman will stop is because, Mrs. Kent and Mrs. Wayne share the same first name. I appreciate that tugs on Batman's heartstrings a little bit, but to me I felt that was a little bit of a cop-out. And the animosity angle between them is just dropped. It's like, we're now friends, LOL. I'm just like, no. Just no. If the fight had taken place an hour into the movie and they spend 20 to 30 minutes getting past their issues, I would have believed that. The other major problem this movie has is, I don't think it was a rush job per se, but it was trying to do so many movies all at once. And first of all, I'm just going to say, Zod is Doomsday. Zack Snyder, what the heck have you been smoking? Let's just talk about the dream sequences. The one where Bruce is floating up to the light in the Batcave. I looked to my brother, the Rand of DC, and we're like, we're just like, what is this? You can imagine some guy. The best thing I could do to sum up this is a clip from a Simpsons episode where a drunk is in the street, lying in the gutter, drinking. I think it was seeing the flying pig go, but it was like, well, that's enough from you. It's like, no, not enough of that. I mean, Zod as dude. If there was a sealed chamber on the Kryptonian ship that had the elements to create Doomsday, I would have been able to buy that, but Doomsday is a combination of Zod's body and Luthor's DNA, I thought, no. Just no. I mean, essentially in this movie, we get Dark Knight Returns, Batman v Superman, Doomsday, Death of Superman, shoehorning in Superman and Lois Lane to get married, and then setting up the Justice League. I think if they had cut this movie down by 30 minutes and actually remove those other elements and then have those as separate movies and then space them out, it would have been a lot easier to work with because it was so much to digest. And I'm just going to go out and say this right now. Although Jesse Eisenberg is a good actor, I'm not going to discredit him, but he was the wrong choice for Lex Luthor. If anything, he would have been more suited to play the Riddler, because he was like Jim Carrey and David Tennant's eccentricity molded together times 30, and they're nowhere near as that eccentric nor crazy. I don't know who I would have cast as Luthor, and to say that he's actually Lex Luthor Jr., I'm like, really, movie? You know, I don't know. Gal Gadot, I keep forgetting how to pronounce her last name, and I do apologize if I'm getting it wrong, but you know, I hear so many different variations, it's hard to keep track of which. As Diana Prince / Wonder Woman, for the little amount of time that she was on screen and lines she had, she definitely has this very enigmatic presence, in the sense of there's something otherworldly about her. The fact that she hasn't aged, she has her own somewhat agenda, and as Wonder Woman, she just looks absolutely badass in the costume. I do like the idea that after Superman's death, which they do kind of play somewhat faithfully to the Doomsday story, where he died protecting Metropolis, and now Bruce wants to find these other metahumans that have been around long before, long before Superman. They've just been in hiding, and he wants to, lay the foundations for the Justice League because he, quote, failed him. And this is just the thing, it's just the sort of pacing and the way the story is written. It's just like the way it's forgotten that, at the start of the movie, Batman is out for blood against Superman, and now all of a sudden he's like best buddies and bros at the end of it. I'm just like, if I had taken another movie to get him to be less, show less animosity towards the Man of Tomorrow, then I would be able to swallow that. I'd be able to say, yeah, okay, I can believe that, but in the space of 20 minutes, I'm just like, what's wrong with you people? Lawrence Fishburne as Perry White, he was a lot more confrontational, particularly with Clark Kent this time. I was actually very pleased to see that. With a lot of issues in regards to morality, Clark saying, you really should be doing the right thing, and actually questioning what the Batman is doing, and Perry just says, look, we will do what I think sells papers, I don't care what you think. Which is kind of a reflection of how news is today. You do get those that want to do the right thing, but the editor's like, yeah, but I don't care what you think. I actually just want to sell papers, whether it's good press or bad press. The imagery is absolutely amazing. What Zack Snyder lacks in writing and directing. As an art director, I think he'd be one of the best, because the visuals that are used in this movie, whether it be from the dream sequences although very trippy and very kind of, you know, what the heck, they do take you to another world, is something I'll say. And speaking of visuals as well, costume design wise, you know, the way that they had the armored bat suit for the fight was very authentic towards the comics, particularly in regards to The Dark Knight Returns. I like the fact that Superman's suit had a lot more of a slightly darker shade of blue in his suit, as opposed to what happened in Man of Steel, where the colours had been muted somewhat. Which again, I was just glad to see some colour put back into this movie. I love the design of the Batcave. I like the fact it was more of a high-tech layer than just a place underground, you know, with just some machinery. I think, again, in regards to imagery and art, I think Zack Snyder had a much more definitive idea of how it should look for the Batcave, as opposed to what Christopher Nolan did with the Dark Knight trilogy. I grant he was going for a realistic approach, but Snyder wanted to have a slightly more comic book feel. And I think a lot of us fans have, you know, I just speak for myself and a few others, but we got a little bit tired of the gritty real-world realism, or the gritty world realism, because, you know, we go to the movies to escape reality, because reality's kind of dull, reality's kind of boring, and we want to escape that and indulge into something that's going to take us out of that world, because, you know, the world's not a very nice place. You know, it's very depressing. Whereas this movie, although there is a sense of realism to it, it took us out of it in places. I will say the dream sequences, to a point, if you toned it down to just one or two, it would have been fine. And the sequence where Bat is in this dystopian future where Superman is essentially king and just goes, you know, sets about Batman's execution. It's just like, I'm beginning to question what was going on during those writing scenes. Make of that what you will. But that is the movie's biggest problem, is there is so much noise going on, it doesn't really know what it wants to be. And, you know, I'm just going to say this right here, right now. Although it's kryptonite that was the only way Bats was going to be able to take on Supes, I am getting sick and tired of seeing it in the movies now. I mean, Superman 1, you know, Lex Luthor discovers it and knows that it can be used against him. Superman 2, it wasn't present, best to my knowledge. Superman 3 was the kryptonite with tar that turned him nasty. Superman Returns, it shows up again, and I'm just, except this time, you know, whereas in Superman 1 he couldn't get it off of his neck whilst he was in a pool, in Superman Returns he's lifting a whole island on his shoulders. Man of Steel wasn't present, which I was very glad to see, because I was just like, you know, come on, I'm getting sick of this. Whereas this one, it reared its ugly head again, and I'm just like, oh, for crying out loud. It's like, you know, I don't need to see this again. I've seen it enough times. I like the way that Amy Adams was a little bit ballsier in this, in the similar respect to the last movie, where she would go and interview a number of people just to try and track Clark down. And in this one, she pretty much has that template. And in terms of camera visuals, there were times where I felt they were pushing the envelope a bit, because I thought in the bathroom scene where Lois is just bathing, Clark comes in, I felt there were a couple of times where Amy Adams was going to be left exposed by the cameras in there, and I'm starting to see why the movie will be R-rated when it comes out. Apparently in July, of all things. I mean, Amy Adams is a beautiful woman. I'm not, you know, I won't, you know, ignore that fact. But I just felt in that particular segment they were pushing the envelope, because, you know, what if they, you know, they just moved the camera slightly off angle and they had shown Amy's chest in a movie that's aimed at, you know, when I say young families, any family that's got kids that are like 12 years young and upwards. It's one thing you have Deadpool pushing the envelope and beyond, because Deadpool's meant to be an adult-orientated comic book movie. Whereas with a character like Superman, you don't really want him crossing that line a little bit, or at all. So, I like the fact that this version of Lois and Clark are a lot more romantic, a little bit more amorous, but you know, in a movie about Batman v Superman, I don't think they needed that possibility put in. That's just me calling it down the middle. I like how we see the existence of other metahumans. We see video files of the Flash, we see Aquaman, and we see Cyborg listed in an email that Bruce had sent to Diana. And I think what's good about this is, unlike various other superhero movies where they try to shove in so much, they just have like fleeting glimpses on screen. They're not, you know, trying to get in the middle of the fight between the two. And I don't like the idea that Gotham and Metropolis are so close to each other. I just felt that could have been done better if the two cities were spaced further apart from each other, because in various other continuities of Batman and Superman, the cities are, you know, spaced apart like hundreds, most possibly thousands of miles. Because in World's Finest, which is what this movie should have been, you know, Bruce Wayne has had to take, you know, a jet to get from Gotham to Metropolis, you know, taking a few various toys with him. So I didn't like that. I felt that was a little bit of a cop-out. I didn't like the fact that Supes just stuck his nose in Batman's business. I appreciate Superman feels as though there has to be a line that you don't cross, but Batman has always been that character that does things on his own merits, knows what he has to do, and in this movie, they really make Batman seem much darker than usual, but because he's a lot older, a lot more grizzled, and a lot more world-weary, he kind of goes to these places where you think, I don't know if that was necessary. And the whole Bat branding, where it's essentially a Batarang, but it's been scolded with, you know, the logo with his emblem onto someone's skin, I felt that was going a little bit too far, because the way Batman leaves his mark is, you know, just leave a Batarang, or, you know, just to leave his mark by saying, look, don't do this again, because I watch from the shadows, you prey on the innocent, I will make you suffer. And so when you see him hanging up in the corner of the ceiling like a gargoyle, it's just like, okay, that's messed up. But again, I suppose that's the whole point of making him seem like this, you know, this force from the shadows. I mean, that's why he is called the Dark Knight, but I don't know. That was on that one occasion that kind of creeped me out a little bit, and especially at the end where he's tormenting Lex Luthor in his prison cell, and then he's just all of a sudden gone. I don't think this movie's a train wreck. I just feel like there could have been so much done in regards to editing to chew the fat out of this movie, just to refine it and bring the, like I say, bring the runtime down to 2 hours, because I felt 2.5 hours was a bit of an ask. And right at the end, you hear these audible cues. Superman's heart's beating again, and just as it's about to go to the end credits, you get the implication that his heart has started back up again. He's just going to rise out of the coffin, and I'm just like, oh, for goodness sake. The major thing they've got to address when they go to the Justice League, the standalone Batman movie, which Ben Affleck is directing from what I hear, and thank goodness, because Zack Snyder should stay as far away from another DC Comics movie as possible. I mean, for Man of Steel, he did a decent job, but the pacing and, you know, the direction of this movie was all over the place. I'd say this movie at best is a guilty pleasure. It's not awful. I think the critics that are po-poing it, you know, there are some critics out there who are biased and paid to make, you know, things that are good look bad, and vice versa. I think with this one, they're right in some aspects, but I don't think this movie is the train wreck that people are labeling it out to be. You know, but that's, again, at the end of the day, that's just my opinion. You know, you take that at face value for what you will. But as a fan that's been watching movies since the early to mid-90s, and I've seen a few Batman and Superman movies in that time as well, I will state outright, this is not the worst Batman. This is not the worst movie I've seen Batman in. Nowhere near. That title, that honor alone, still belongs to Batman and Robin. The best live-action Batman movies I've seen is 1989's Batman with Michael Keaton as the character, and Batman Begins. I think this one, it's okay. The Dark Knight is better than this. I will give Christopher Nolan that, but this movie is a little bit better than The Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises has way too much padding going on, and this movie is guilty of that as well. But again, it just comes down to the you know fans, when they get the DVD and the Blu-ray of this, they're going to download the movie onto the computer, go into Vegas or Adobe, whichever video software, editing software you use, and they will churn so much out of this, because a lot can be cut from this movie, and it's kind of one of those situations where the title's very misleading. It's supposed to be, you know, the two icons of DC Comics going at it, and it only goes on for about 5 to 10 minutes, and to me that's kind of unacceptable. I walked out of the theatre this afternoon not disappointed, but it could have been better. So in that respect, it's just going to get an average good flick bargain. I'm looking very forward to what Ben Affleck can do with a standalone Batman movie, considering he did a lot of the rewrites in this whilst wearing the Batsuit, which is one way of doing method writing, for lack of a better expression. And the thing that I was really pleased with in regards to the Batman voice, there was none of, "I'm Batman!" He just played, he said in an interview that when asked, "How do you say the line, 'Tell me, do you bleed?' he actually just said it straight, 'Tell me, do you bleed?' But then they added the digital effects in post-production to make it sound like his voice was electronically different. And that, I think, is the way it should have been all along, because somebody who happens to hear Batman is like, wait, aren't you Bruce Wayne? So I think in terms of live action Batman actors, my two favorites now are Michael Keaton and Ben Affleck. But I was very skeptical about Affleck to begin with, but I'm sold on him. I think he was the right choice. But in terms of overall, my favorite, and this includes animation as well, my favorite live action animation: Keaton, Affleck, Conroy, and Rina Romano. Rina Romano was the one who voiced Batman in the Batman animated series in the mid-noughties. Really underrated series. Give it a look. Not disappointed, but there was a room for a lot of improvement, mainly in regards to pacing and the writing. That's pretty much all I'll say. Thank you for staying with me throughout this review. I appreciate this one went a lot longer and deep into spoiler territory, but that's why I gave people the option of, this review and the spoiler-free version, which is a link in the description below. But yeah, thanks for that, and hope everyone had a good Easter, and I'll see you next time on Real Features. MJ Knight, signing off.